Well, hello once again, and another very warm welcome back to your number one and favourite classic dirt bike TV channel. And again, thanks to the many brand new subscribers who have signed up since my last video posting. I think we've had another 20 loyal subscribers signed up since my last video. So thanks to each and every one of you out there for your continuing support. Now, this time round, we're not going to take a look at a bike as such, but we're going to take a look at another couple of very rare historic items from CCM, and in this particular video, we're going to take a look at their unique 5-stroke BSA engine and a very extremely rare sidecar outfit that CCM built way back in the mid 1970s. So without any further delay, let's just all jump straight into the video. Now, back in the early 1980s, Alan Clues and CCM were going through a period of reorganisation, and the company were competing with much larger Japanese factories for their share of sales in the highly competitive motocross motorcycles market. And Alan Clues was looking at all of his options and any other avenues that he could find to improve the finances of his iconic CCM enterprise. Now, one such avenue was by way of government development grants, which were handed out to local businesses if they had a certain idea or any business improvement schemes that may benefit their particular company. Of course, if indeed they had the financial backing to research and develop the idea. And so Alan then penned a letter to the NRDC, which was the National Research and Development Council, to ask if they'd be interested in helping out on his new project, which of course was the research and development of this revolutionary 5-stroke engine. Now, sometime later, and to Alan's actual surprise, he received the backing of the NRDC, who agreed to meet half of the development costs, which for 1980 I think was about £250,000, which was a decent chunk of cash at that time, and of course a big cash boost for CCM and for the development of this quite radical 5-stroke motor. Now, this BSA B50 power plant, it's said, was just one of only 2 engines ever made, and this featured survivor belongs to classic racer Peter Hollinshead, and I just managed to grab these pictures and video clips of the engine when Peter had it on display at the Westmoreland Golden Jubilee Scramble. Although the engine boffins at CCM HQ had been flirting with this idea of a 5-stroke engine for quite some time, and they were convinced that this brand new concept could actually work. Now, I know that you're all going to try and catch me out here by getting me to explain just exactly how this 5-stroke motor works, but of course I'm not going to do that, because a lot of the time I really can't tell a camshaft from a cam day. But what I will do is I'll quote you a few passages from Bill Lawless's excellent book called Rolling Thunder, The History of CCM. Now, I quote: "The 5-stroke motor works by using the underside of the piston to pressurise the combustion chamber using the crankcases like a 2-stroke, while retaining the conventional valve gear of a 4-stroke. Now, it promises high mean effective pressures without increasing peak pressures and overstressing the motor, and so the overall goal is more power, more reliability, and of course decreased fuel consumption." End quote. So there you have it. That's the basis of the idea in a nutshell, and if you can understand that how that engine works by that little passage, then you're certainly a better man than me. Now, in this Trials in Motocross news clipping from 1980, you can see the BSA B50 engine on the CCM dynamometer being tested, and it's also stated in this clipping that the second motor was already built and was in the process of being fitted into a frame, but there's not really a lot of evidence to say that they actually had it running in a bike or it was tested on a track. But nevertheless, early development work did take place, and the motor was tested and running on the dynamometer, although CCM of course had more important things to attend to keep their company solvent at the time, and this 5-stroke project had to take a back seat, and sometime later it was actually suspended altogether. But who knows, with the right investment and backing, it certainly would have been a world first to see one of these CCM 5-stroke BSA B50 power plants powering a CCM around the tracks of Europe. Now, one of the other old CCM relics that I wanted you to take a look at was this Motocross Sidecar outfit, or chair as they were sometimes known. Now, I think this was around 1975 or thereabouts that CCM were looking to diversify their product range, and Alan Clues had hit on the idea of building a motocross sidecar outfit, because sidecar racing at that time was very big in the 1970s, and so Alan and his CCM frame builder at the time, Mike Etoff, then took a quick look at a rind-tucked Wasp sidecar machine, who were of course at that time regarded to be the country's #1 go-to manufacturer if you wanted a sidecar chassis manufactured. And so basically, to cut a long story short, Alan then decided to build his own sidecar chassis and use one of his BSA B50 580 motors to power it. Now, as far as I know, only one actual unit was built, and this is the bike that you see here in these clips, which is another piece of CCM history that belongs to Peter Hollinshead. But according to the story, this unit was built and then put on display at the London Racing Bike Show of that year, and soon after, the sidecar outfit idea was then later shelved, and this particular outfit here was then handed over to the late great Dave Bickers, who actually did race it during that 1975 racing season. Now, in this shot here, you can see that Alan Clues has used the front fork straight from one of his solo CCM bikes, and as far as I know, this is the remains of the 580 BSA B50 motor that powered it, although I think Peter's robbed some of its parts for the many other CCMs that he has in his collection. And although this particular outfit isn't much to look at in its present state, but this is still a very important part of CCM history, considering it was the only one that was ever put together. Although the other little bit of background to this particular story here was that back in the day, Clues competition machines used to put their motorcycles together in the upstairs floor of their premises in Shifnal Street in Bolton, and when they were all completed, they would then lower the finished bikes down a ramp at the end of a rope. But of course, this sidecar outfit was also built upstairs, and when it was all completed, the CCM guys then found that it was just far too big to go down the ramp, and so it had to be completely dismantled once again and then rebuilt back on the ground floor. Now, all of the surviving parts that you can see here are still the original CCM factory bits and pieces that were fitted to the unit in that year. And I suppose it would have been quite easy enough for Peter to completely restore this bike to its original new condition and use it as a showpiece, but that of course takes away all of the original patina and of course its history. And I know that with Peter, all of his bikes and the other memorabilia that he has in his collection are all about originality, so it's little wonder that he's done nothing to this quite unique, historic CCM artifact. Well, I hope you enjoyed that brief look around those historic CCM artifacts, a couple of nice historic items belonging to Peter Hollinshead. And in fact, Peter has quite a collection of old CCMs and other machines in his bike collection, so we may put that in the calendar for a visit in 2022 to Peter's premises and take a look at some of the nice bikes that he also has in his collection. But on the subject of CCMs, if you like your Clues competition machines, then coming up next we'll be taking a look at this unique pair of C20 560 CCM bikes. Now these are just two bikes, another couple of bikes belonging to Rob Hughes, and these C20s, I think in 1991, I think only about 40 or 42 of these bikes were ever made. So if you like your CCMs, we'll be taking a look at this lovely pair of bikes in my next video here on my channel. But until then, of course, the same applies to all of you vintage racers out there. Do be careful when you're out there riding those old vintage race bikes, and get back here soon so we can all talk about more vintage iron right here on your #1 and favourite classic dirt bike TV channel.